Okay, welcome. We've started recording. So this is week 2 of our CISSP study session. Once again, we're going to be continuing with a whole lot of reading and everything else. I know there's a lot there. Don't worry too much about that. It's like everything else. It doesn't need to necessarily be done in the short time frame that like some people seem to want to do it in. It's good if you can, but if you can't, don't worry too much about it. At the same time, it's really about getting through as much as you can, okay? So just get through as much as you can, and at the end of the day, as long as you can sort of work through it and understand, you should be fine without too many problems. Excuse me. So we're going to earn the CISSP certification without having to break your wallet and whatever else, going through the normal bits, I don't know, and continuing with all this, and yeah, let's keep going. So this is once again a compressed version of the subject that we've got, so we're going to continue with all that, and once again I'll see if the other guys are there. Have I got anyone else who... Yep.
I'm here, Craig.
Okay, so you want to... we're going to do a little bit of an intro again for the course? Or is we're just going to skip through that bit?
I think maybe we should just get through that, get to the CISSP things. All the information was included last time around, so you can watch it on the recording.
That sounds great for me. Extra time and... whatever else. So we'll just flick through the normal bit we've got there. I'm still the same person. I'm still Craig Wright, so we're still continuing. Okay, so we're going to do CISSP certification overview and all the rest out of all this. I've loaded some material that will give you a brief overview so you can have a bit of a look on the MOOC. So if you haven't already had a look up there, I suggest you log in and have a look. Lots of people have been sort of commenting on the forums and things like this, and we'll hopefully get you all with your common body of knowledge, and we'll keep going with the study suggestions. Now, once again, I want to make sure I thank all these authors and whatever else that have given up their time to put materials out there on the internet, some of which we're using, of course, and yeah, it's a great way of being able to educate ourselves inexpensively. Lots of stuff out there that we can use and all of us can put together so that we can actually become, well, better at information security and other such areas. So we have many open source areas for you to read from Wiki right through. So we're going to talk about many of these and we're going to use many of these. So make sure that you do. Yes, lots of you have got textbooks and other things, but you'll find even using just the open source, you should be able to get through without any problem. Everything's out there that you need. So we're going to put it together in a way that hopefully gets you through and helps you pass this exam. So we're going to make sure we can get you as much as possible without cost. So 3 main principles. We're going to go and cover this all the time: availability, integrity, and confidentiality. In security, about all of these different aspects you hear about in crypto and everything like that can just be put down to these 3 main overarching areas: availability, integrity, and confidentiality. And as I've said, I like to have them in the order they are, because for most business users, this is what actually matters. Availability is first, and then integrity, and then confidentiality. I know we think about these other ways, but at the end of the day, it matters that we have access to our computers, we have access to our email, we have access to everything else. And also remember, security is not an absolute. Security can never be an absolute. It is always a risk function. So in a way, we are like the doctor. So you go out there and you have audits, and those audits are really about making sure that you've had your checkup and you're good, but that doesn't stop problems happening. And a lot of what we do is not just our regular doctor visit type checkup, but it's then coming in with incident handling and response as a specialist so that we can put things back together. So in my case, with my torn Achilles, it's going out to the doctor to stitch things up and sew things and walking around in a boot for the moment. But at the same time, it also means for IT security, what we're looking at doing is putting things together in such a way that we know we can maintain and control availability, integrity, and confidentiality. So we're going to start with week 2's part 1, business continuity planning, BCP, and disaster recovery planning, DRP. We're really looking at how we preserve critical business functions. So lots of material on this that we need to go into. Some links there. These will be up on the MOOC as well. So disaster recovery, Wikipedia, lots of stuff on Wiki. So we can look at different planning definitions and all the rest. And there's a great site out there, disasterrecovery.org, that has a lot of material on all of this. And the first thing you'll know and notice when you've done a little bit of BCP and disaster recovery is that it's not just about IT. The first thing you need to really come to understand is that it is a combination. It comes down to all sorts of things. So DR is really about any incident, whether it's a accident that's occurred, the building's fallen over, someone's had a terrorist attack, the power's gone out, someone's backhoed a cable, whatever. And it's a subset of BCP because we want to make sure that our business, our operations continue, not just now, but continue for the long term. So, what are we looking at? Oops. Continuation of critical business process. So, how do we make sure that if we lose data processing capabilities, we can keep going? What we're trying to do here is preparation, testing, and maintenance, the different areas that cover processing, so that we can ensure over time that we have all those necessary controls in place up front and not have to worry about it down the track. So it's really about ensuring that we have the things necessary to allow us to do business over the long term. Okay, so what can we say? It's really how do we make sure that we can, over time, ensure our business is going to be ongoing and not be lost. So, if we don't have BCP, we don't have availability for a start. And that's one of the main issues here. So, we have different disasters. So when we're covering this, then we're looking at fire, flood, all that stuff, time-based definition. So plane crashes, vandalism, riots, anything that diminishes or destroys our normal processing operations. So anything that impacts, anything that changes what we're doing. So anything that we have that doesn't allow us to well, start correctly, etc. So, and as Philip has said in the background, don't leave out the zombie apocalypse. Although I don't know if many BCP programs have a zombie apocalypse issue. Generally speaking, if you don't have to worry about whether you're going to have business tomorrow, you probably don't need to worry too much about whether you, well, need to ensure capabilities. I mean, I'm sure Amazon has not really considered whether they can sell zombie apocalypse books after the zombie apocalypse is there, but you never know. So always something to consider. Now, it's disaster if it impacts these areas. So what is it? Time-based definition. How long can the business stand the pain? What is the business able to put up with? What can it actually do? And how long will it survive if the business isn't there? So how long can our business stand the pain? What is the probability of occurrence? So this is a risk-based function. How likely are we to get an earthquake in Sydney? It's possible. We've just had some again in New Zealand, and they've felt the pain over there, a little way away from us, but we don't get too much over here in Australia. At the same time, who knows? People used to say that these things won't happen, but look at Newcastle. Newcastle here in Australia, just a little bit, a couple hours away from Sydney, had some major earthquakes that no one expected just a few years back. anything can happen. But the probability is something we also need to take into account on risk. But when this happens, how long can our business survive? So what are our objectives? There they are. And we're trying to document and test all of this. So availability, main focus. Confidentiality is important. We don't want people accessing our files when something's occurred. And integrity, making sure our data's there. We want to create, test, distributed networks. So create, test, document, and make sure that we have a plan that will allow for timely access to all our data, allow for the business operations to continue, and allow us to continue. We're trying to minimize any loss. So business continuity is about loss minimization. Of course, at the same time, we have to also meet any regulatory or legal requirements. So if we're talking about something such as, say APRA here in Australia, which are the Australian Prudential Regulatory Authorities guidelines, something similar to what many other, like Bail 2, Bail 3 type provisions in banking around the world, SOX, etc., then we have requirements to file documents, be able to protect information and all of that over time. So that also means that we need to be able to update, plan and access. So all of that is there and needs to be done. We need not just the data center. What are we doing? Ongoing process, but distributed personnel, all aspects of IT. And how do you reasonably say after the fact it wasn't probable, so we didn't plan for it? Well, first thing is, it may not be probable, but things will happen. So what we have to do is try and account for every possibility and have management sign off. So put down a scope saying, chances of an earthquake here in Sydney are 1 in a million, but this is the amount of damage. Does management want to do anything? Yes, no. What they'll probably do is get insurance. So rather than after the fact going, well, we didn't plan for it, you can take out insurance. So low-risk events, things you can say that weren't probable, are probably something you want to hand off, really, give away to someone else. So as I was saying, though, we need all our different operations, personnel, power, everything. It's no good saying that we have protected all our systems, but we don't have any personnel left anymore. We still don't have a business. At the same time, if we've protected our computers, but we don't have any way of getting power back in, so what? It doesn't matter. If we can't actually do our operations, we can't do them. So remember, BCP, 5 phases, and we start as an ongoing process. It's a project to get it going, but it shouldn't be looked at as a project per se. BCP is an operational thing. There are projects within BCP, but a good BCP is an operational area. So when we're doing it, we're doing creating, testing, maintaining, and updating, any of which can in itself involve project work, because the critical business functions that we need to protect are going to change. They're going to be updated. They're going to be different. But it's an ongoing operational process more than a project-based process. And for this, we really need to have buy-in from all around the business. So BCP team needs to be a combination of business and IT personnel. So senior management support is necessary. Anytime we're going across the organization, then we need to have buy-in from senior management. So let's go into our 5 phases. We'll start one in a second. But project management and initiation. Business impact analysis. We first of all want to look at the different areas within the business, what they're doing, and have a look at the impact to the business if something goes wrong. So we start with project management and initiation. As I said, this is not a project per se, but the initiation of it, the creation of our first BCP and the update would be a project. So it's a project within an operational framework. First, business impact analysis. We need to know all these different things. What can they do for the business, whether they're probable or not? So we will still put things like, well, if there's an earthquake here in Sydney, what will it cause us? It's not probable. If you're in California or you live in LA or somewhere like this, then well, earthquake's something you really need to put into your planning. But here in Sydney, earthquakes, well, so infrequent it's not funny. We don't have them terribly often. We're rather stable, but that doesn't mean it can't happen. So at the same time, we have to include them. Then, for each of these, we need to think about recovery strategies. Business impact analysis gives us what we can lose. How do we recover? How do we minimize that loss? Then we can put some plans in place, how we test it, how we maintain it, what sort of awareness and training, and go into our different stages here. And we start with project management initiation. And, well, first of all, what is our risk? So we've done our kickoff, and first, what is the risk we're actually doing? So we analyze some of the risk, and this is where we start including some of the probabilities of the events as well, because over time we can have a few problems there, but if they're unlikely, not really probable, then the risk is lower, even if it's a high-level incident or something like this. For this, we need management support. Management need to be there in the background. We need to have a team. Project management or whatever else, if it's a project, functional management, technical, BCP, so our business continuity planner. We need to have work plans, scope, goals, methods, timelines, all that stuff. So in this phase, we're really looking at creating a project, like any other project that we'll see out there. We go through our initial report to management, tell them what's what, how it's going, all that sort of fun stuff. Then we don't move till we get management approval. It's not for us to decide. I know a lot of people get a little bit narky here, thinking that security is about protecting everything no matter what. It's not. Information security is really working with the management of the team, who have to approve what we're doing. So if we're going off on our own, we're not actually controlling any of these things well, then we're going to have problems. So we first of all need to actually put down what the risk is and let management decide. Start with our business impact analysis. Goal. First, get management approval. So first of all, MTD, maximum tolerable downtime. Okay, how long can anything be down? What can we stand? This is what we're talking about here. These are going to be given to us not by ourselves, but by senior management. We have to get the formal agreement from management what they will put up with. And if that means that they say email, well, 30 days, then email 30 days. If they say payroll, 15 days, payroll 15 days. If they say processing system you don't care about because you don't like it, it has to be up within 2 hours, then it has to be up within 2 hours. That's what we're talking about. We have to then look at the mean time that can be out, and then look at the maximum tolerable downtime that occurs. We're looking at a quantified loss. Okay, so financial loss, recovery, embarrassment, anything we need to do. What probability of incident? How do we quantify all of that? How do we put all this together? And once we have, that's where we can get our business impact analysis. We can look at the actual loss, no matter what the probability of anything happens to be. We can interview people and all that before we want to do that. So we can go around, survey people, put things together. Some organizations actually do this quite well. They have part of their audit team going around anyway and working out the different values of parts of the organization. If that's already occurred, then we can just grab it and implement part of what has occurred in the audit process itself, whether it's financial audit or otherwise, and just validate that that's actually correct. We can then analyze the information, look at whether it is reasonable or not, and we're trying to find the time-critical business functions. These are the things that matter over time and again and again. So at the end of the day here, we are attempting to put together information. So we're attempting to select what we may or may not do. We're attempting to find out what can survive for different amounts of time. So one of the greatest and easiest ways of doing information security is looking at hazard survival models. How long can our business function without this? How long is our machine secure for? How long will someone take to break in? And all these time-critical functions are what we are really looking at when we're doing our BIA phases there. So we're assigning MTD, maximum tolerable downtime, and the maximum allowable downtime. They're not always the same, but they can be quite similar. So maximum tolerable is before we start feeling the pain, and maximum allowable is, oh no, we may as well not turn up tomorrow. Sometimes they are the same, sometimes they're different. We need to rank those based on our MTDs. Business will tell us which ones are there. Not our job to argue. That is a senior management area. So once we have all of this, we can rank it on time. 5 minutes, an hour, 10 hours, etc. And some of this will vary as well, because MTDs vary by time of day even. As an example, back when I worked at the stock exchange, now securities exchange, they had MTDs of seconds. You could have things down for seconds, but only between 10 and 4. Trading time, as long as the trading floor was up, things had to be up. If it was after hours, well, didn't really matter. As long as it had testing before the trading floor started, it wasn't so bad. So your MTD in a single day varied from 12 hours to, well, a second. So it becomes a more complex function, but we can do that. And then we can rank business functions based on those and get management sign-off. Then we can start our recovery strategies. Different ones there, but we can put these in place based on how long our system's going to survive. And again, remember, management's approval always makes the difference. What we are trying to do is ensure that management knows about these things and have accepted the risk or are going to do something about it. It is not our job as security people to make a system perfectly secure. It is our job, because we are risk people, to make sure that the right people know what the risk is. That's how we do good security. There is not an unlimited budget in anything. I know people like to argue that there's unlimited budgets and we can do whatever else, but that doesn't exist. All right, so to explain the difference between MTD, maximum tolerable downtime, and MAO, maximum allowable downtime, once again, maximum tolerable is when we start to feel the pain. We need to get this system running because we are suffering big losses. We are really bleeding heavily. MAO may be the same. Sometimes the system is so critical that our MAO and our MTD are the same, but maximum allowable is you cannot under any circumstances go past this time. So maybe we have a key critical area. So where we're looking at, well, we start really hemorrhaging money after 6 hours, but we're out of business after 12. Then 6 hours would be our MTD, our MAO would be 12, that sort of thing. So, management approval, always important. Different strategies, important. Remember, different things are involved with all this. So, different technical strategies, different cost benefits, and we choose based on cost benefit analysis. It's really coming down to financial once again, and driven by business and management requirements and needs. So different people are going to really come down and look at what's out there and how their business really handles things. I've done a couple examples. And an example for MTD and MAO, I'll put that on the forum and we'll go from there. I'll get people to also put some in. Okay, how to choose. Management. It is not our choice. We do not choose what security is about. That is important. We give accurate analysis to management. As a risk professional, we give accurate analysis to management. That does not mean we get upset because they haven't done what we wanted them to, as some people do. We are not there to run the strategy of the business. We are there to ensure that Well, we analyze the situation and give the best results to business. And people get that one wrong all the time in this industry. So we're looking at our different strategies across different services, and we need to consider business operations, facility and supplies, users, our workers, our end users, whatever else, our network, our data center, all the technical things, and where our backups and data and everything happen to be, and how quickly we can get them all back. And if we have off-site backups, how quickly can we get access to those? Can we actually pull all the information? Can we go back and work? And that's all these areas: data, data center, networks, communications. And we need to understand a little bit of difference about how some of these actually function. So what networks do we have? What telecoms do we have? What do we need to be up and running for our particular business? How can we do that? How can we recover? Looking at subscription services, people out there who have the ability to share information with us. For instance, if we're talking about credit unions here in Australia, there's companies like Data Action that host multiple credit unions, and they pay for the service. Mutual aid agreements where people share. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Redundant data centers, more costly, but allowing you to do it in service bureaus. Then we have hot, cold, whatever else. So subscription goes from hot, fully equipped, everything working, ready to go, sometimes even mirrored, all that sort of stuff. Warm, basically there, all the stuff, maybe it's unpacked, maybe we need to install operating system, put the data on something, but it's not fully working. Cold is our empty data center. Then on top of that we have mirrors, full redundancy, completely operating. But then we also need to ensure that anytime we have a mirror that we're not running, for instance, if we only have 2 sites, we can never run either of them more than 50%, because then what happens if one falls over? If we're running at 60 or 80%, then our whole system goes to over 100% and it falls over anyway. And we also have mobile options. There are all these little trailers that pop up and we can roll in a whole pile of computers. So technical strategies, mutual aid, nice and simple. I'll help you, you help me. It's not really expensive, but it's also not very practical. So if we think about it, then, well, I'll help you if a problem happens. But then you rock up on the door of your friend over there, partner company, whatever else, and you say, hey, I've got to use your data center. We're in a little bind, and it may not have a contract or anything, and it's just informal sometimes. And they go, oh, but we've just rolled out a whole lot of stuff, and oh, that's difficult for us at the moment. Come back next week. So may not be practical. So difference between hot and mirror. There's always a continuum between these, but right in the center of hot, what we're looking at is ready to go. So you've got data center 1, data center 2. Data center 2 is basically up and running, maybe needs a few updates to the database, transaction log run, that sort of thing. But it's basically you can get it going in minutes. Mirror, on the other hand, is everything hopefully up to date, right to the moment or close to. So you can switch over. A true full mirror is where you have everything replicated on both sites. Sometimes it's close to hot, where you have one primary site and then a mirror site that's ready to have the network flicked over to. Sometimes you actually split the traffic and even load balance between them. So that varies depending on this strategy. So let's see. Redundant processing centers. Next. Expensive. Having something just sitting there, maybe we don't have enough spare capacity for critical operations. The more redundant centers and the more we split it, the easier this becomes. Because if we're looking at an N+1, then losing one of them isn't too bad. We have less per site, but that of course means more money to put out there. So if you're someone like Microsoft, where you've got 30+ data centers, then if you have 10% sort of spare capacity, then it's not too difficult for you really to handle that difference in capacity. On the other hand, service bureaus, we share facilities. We're able to go out there, have something like DA, as I mentioned before, but it's expensive. We have to have negotiated agreements. Other clients can impact us. All sorts of fun and funky things that we need to start considering before we go too far down these tracks. And remember, it can be just as expensive as a hot site. Technical recovery data. So we've also got backups, off-site versus on-site storage of media. We have to consider how fast we can recover our media and how much we can lose, because if we're doing a daily backup, and the system goes down at 5 o'clock, we run our backup at 6, then maybe we've lost a day's worth of entry. So how much data can we lose? How fast can we recover things? If we have tape backup stored in an off-site location and it takes 2 hours for the tapes to get there and then another 2 hours for them to get back, then maybe it's actually going to take us a few hours before we even get our tapes. Maybe after hours on Sundays or something like this, it's even longer. It might be 8 to 16 hours before we can get things back. And we also need to understand the types of backups, such as full incremental differential, etc., and how they come in a strategy. All right, so then once we've done all of this, this bit here, we can start planning. So implementation plan, detailed plan for recovery. Once we have this in place, we can start putting our recovery plans into action. So we can look at recovery plans, maintenance, awareness, how we go about all of this. And then we have to test it again and again. It's no good just to know that we have these things there, but we need to be able to test them. So what phases do we have in our plan? Initial disaster response. What do we do right then? How do we triage it? How do we resume critical business operations? First things first. This is a triage type process. What is most critical? What have we set with our maximum downtime, our maximum tolerable downtime there, to get first fixed? So what can we do to get it at least hobbling along? What non-critical things can we then bring in? How do we then restore back to our primary site, if we can at all, or do we have to have another site because we're burnt down or something? And we're also going to, all through this process, have to interact with other people, consumers, medias, emergency response, all sorts of things will happen. Then we can go to our final phase, test, maintenance, awareness, training. This is where it becomes operational again. So testing. If we don't test it, we don't have a plan. So we can do things like structured walkthroughs, checklists, parallel simulation, full interruption. We can look at maintenance phases, problem founded testing, auditing, building plans, reviewing plans, etc. But we need to make sure that we actually do all this. So also, DR. So BCP is probably also a disaster recovery team. BCP training is ongoing. This is a cyclic process. It doesn't just occur once. It happens again and again and again. It's like the old Deming cycle. Plan, do, check, act. We start, we check, we start, we check, and we update, and we make it better each cycle. Every time we do this, we should be getting better at doing it. Our business should be growing and learning. So training needs to be part of the standard. So as we start with the organization, we should know that this is going to occur. We should know what we have. We should know how we're going to recover, what is important, and all the rest, and it should be part of our culture. So if we really want this to succeed, it really comes down to making sure that the corporate culture includes it all, so that we have things in place that will allow us to go over all of these different issues. So some reading, another link, these will all be put up there. This is the GEAC site once again. There are resources in all of that, and I put up the wrong one for some reason. I put up application, but I'll fix that on the MOOC. So first area. We'll have a quick 5-minute break, but also if you've got some other questions we want to ask as we're going. So remember, quick run out, grab your coffee, all that sort of fun stuff. And any questions you have on this area. After this, we start with crypto. Okay, so we've got the CDC has a zombie response plan. I haven't actually seen that one. but I will have to have a good look at it. Yes, there is a lot of information here. Remember, we're really covering off on all sorts of things out there. We are covering off on BCP, which is a complete area that people actually specialize in, and we're trying to get lots of information on that. Can I provide resources, for example, of calculating risk analysis? Definitely. There are some that are already loaded. If you have a look through some of the papers I've put up, I've got one going into all the different risk analysis types, or the main ones anyway. But also ask that as a question on the site, and we can discuss that more, because there'll be far more than the things I've got. So lots of information here. Yeah, the questions aren't visible. That's generally why I'm trying to read out a little bit as well. So now, real-life scenarios. If people want to cover real-life scenarios for BCP DRP, then I'm quite happy to go into that at the end of the day. So if you want to think about putting some scenarios up on the forum, we can go into all of those and cover off on some. That will allow you to ask questions in your own domain, your own type of business, your own work, and I'm sorry, I've got a question there. Sorry, must we make a resume about this chapter for you? I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, I put up the wrong link there for the GIAC one, but I'll fix that one. Yes, even just being a security professional, because remember, this is covering all the different domains, not just IT security. Yeah, I'll get the correct one on the MOOC. The problem with web pages is they change these things. I didn't update that one. It should be the DR one anyway. So that will, as I said, be put up on the MOOC. In the testing phase, how much of a system can you take offline as simulation? That really depends. It depends on your business, and you have to have business sign-off on it. And yes, some people, I've got a tongue-in-cheek ZARP, zombie apocalypse recovery plan. Yes, there are zombie people like zombie fans like myself who like watching all these things and add zombie apocalypse stuff to about anything, but it is a bit silly. So scenario questions appear on the exam, yes, and please cover some of those on the forum. That's where we should be talking about this. So I'd like people to try and interact on there about that. So when an international company has diverse geographical sites, which regimentation should we follow? Headquarters or foreign or both? That's going to be really up to the organization. We don't have anything here. It's not for us to decide. So it really comes down to what management want. All right, if IT findings say BCP plan should be more effective, then we need to make sure that management understands more. They have to have more interaction, more knowledge, and we have to cover more. How do we come back with our plan and actually go over what can go wrong? How do we fix it? And so it's going to need more management updates. Where the questions from last week uploaded to the MOOC, and where can I get that MOOC? I'll let Chantal or one of the others put the link there if you haven't already had a look at it. So one of the links took to Quizlet. Yes, some of these, all of these free type flashcards, whatever else, do plenty of. So there are some other links and whatever else. I recommend go out there and do as many practices as you can. What do I think is the best methodology for developing a BCP? We'd need to go into scenarios. It's not that simple. It really comes down to ensuring that we have the right thing for the right company. And a mining company is going to be far different to a financial services company. So we'll need to go into that into the forum as well. Quite happy to. So put a question there. If a business make a mistake on rating, but it is not not security's jurisdiction, well, if a business doesn't do it, then that's their problem. Security isn't the business. At the end of the day, security is not there other than as a risk thing. We're like a doctor. We can't make someone take an injection. We can't make someone do something. We just put recommendations in place. That's where people get all out of place for the wrong reasons. That we're not there as a security person to fix everyone's problems. Business people have responsibility, and we need to make sure that that's going to be taken account of. We cannot do that for them, and if we are, then we're wasting our time and effort, and we're really going to just burn ourselves out. Yes, Microsoft and things talk about their BCP, and so do others. You have to look on their sites. They have it listed. People should be looking at new risks. They should focus on industry research and what is coming up. I'm recommending a combination of things like Quizlet and CISSP pages that I put up. So as much as you can, really. How do you tie BCP with the high availability design? Well, at the end of the day, you try and make sure that the business continuity plan you have meets the requirements. How much downtime do you have, and can you do that? That's what you've got to get. So if you have a high availability requirement, well, what does it protect? What does it make sure is up? How much technical knowledge is required, basic or core for CISSP? Lots and lots of reading. What email must I send? Please, can you resend? I'll get Chantel to look at that one once again and make sure you answer. So, Sans Reading Room, GIAC resources, etc. Anyway, let's have a bit of a look here. And in our next area, it's time to go back and start with domain number 2 already. So we're also going to look at cryptography. Once again, as I said, make sure that we go over everything. And your account should be open for a long time. I don't want anything going away. What we want to make sure that you can keep doing is, even if you don't get this done in 6 weeks, then keep coming back, keep learning, keep copies of all this stuff. It's given away free. At the end of the day, you want to make sure that you learn all this, copy everything down. I'm not going to stop you. That sort of stuff. So cryptography. Ooh, some links. Wikipedia. Gary Kessler. Kess is a great guy over there in the States, who's another uni boffin like me. He has some great material there. Virtual School also does. So have a look at those links. And once again, I will be pumping them up onto the main site. So they will go onto the MOOC, and you can have a bit of a read later. But cryptography is the idea of storing and transmitting data in a form that only the authorized parties can interpret. Nice and simple, doesn't it? And what we need to know for the particular domain here is the history, the terms, the definitions, things like symmetric and asymmetric algorithms, hashing, which people get confused, which isn't actually crypto, but it's based on cryptographic type algorithms, PKI, or public key infrastructure, the different concepts, and even some attacks on crypto systems. If we don't know how crypto systems work, then, well, we get into all sorts of trouble. At the end of the day, it means hidden writing. Crypto, well, crypto means hidden. It's from the Greek root, and graphy, writing, written, something transmitted that way, so hidden writing. And it's really used more and more to protect information. It's really what helps us mainly ensure confidentiality over the majority of systems. It's the integrity, authenticity thing that we use to protect systems at some stage, and crypto can do two main things: confidentiality and integrity. used in the right way, we can ensure, because the integrity is there, that we have the right person signing it and some way of tracing it back, that we can ensure that nothing's changed. So authenticity is really a subset of integrity, and we can ensure that. It's been around a long, long time. So we know that it dates back at least 2000 BC. We have pen and paper cryptography in the past, and there are some examples like Cytail, Atbash, Caesar, and Vigneer that you really need to know. And no, crypto is not for availability. This is something that people get mixed up. Crypto doesn't make you completely secure for the simple fact that it can't. It cannot do anything for availability. You can't make someone not DOS you, for instance, with crypto. We have cipher machines. We go into the mechanical era, so these are things like Confederate Army cipher disks, Japanese red and purple machines, and the Enigma. So nice little cool machines that existed around World War II and earlier. Things that are mechanical. We have more modern things, Lucifer, Ringel, RSA, Elgamal, and computerized cryptography. Going back to the 70s and beyond, we find all these new things coming there. So we need to understand the different terminology: plain text, ciphertext, keys, key spaces, etc. Our plain text, that's messages in their natural format. Things readable by anyone, just like you're seeing now on the screen. Enigma, Alan Turing, pardon today. So, ciphertext, message altered by unreadable anyone except the intended recipients. So ciphertext really comes down to ensuring that we can stop anyone else seeing it other than the people we want to, if we do it right. A key, that's a sequence of controls and operations that, well, control all the different behaviors. The cryptographic algorithms what really makes this how it works. And the key space is the total number of possible values of keys in a crypto algorithm. So our key space is like if we have a 128-bit key, a 256-bit key, etc. How many possible values in our crypto system and how difficult it is thus to break. Initialization vectors, random values like a salt, really, something chucked in there to ensure that no patterns are created during encryption. Particularly important when we're doing stream-based ciphers, but also to ensure that no replay happens in block ciphers. Cryptosystems is the combination, so going back up here again, of all these different bits and pieces, algorithm, key management functions, all of that stuff put together gives us our cryptographic function. Together, that's how we know what we're doing. So all of these in one big pile and block. So not one, but all of them. Okay. So let's see, where are we? Cryptography. Now, confidentiality, integrity, authenticity, non-repudiation, and access control. Now, I will say, first of all, having a law degree, non-repudiation is bunk. With all this information, we can take the exam, or do you need recommend study more? As all the things you put up on the MOOC as well, make sure you have a read of those, and if you've covered everything in the MOOC and all the bits I'm presenting here, then you should be able to take the exam. Do we have to understand each algorithm listed? Yes, we will go through each of those, and there'll be a lot of reading. You don't need to know all of the details about how they work, but we will cover some of the basics about them. They can ask questions, so there will be stuff there. So confidentiality, integrity, authenticity, non-repudiation, access control. Non-repudiation means if the key is, well, protected, if no one gets to it, all that sort of stuff, you don't get to say, I didn't sign that. The reality is you can always repudiate a transaction in real life. So no matter how good your crypto system is, non-repudiation doesn't go away. It's a fact of our legal system. So crypto geeks like to think that they can create a non-repudiation system. They can't. They've missed the whole legal point. But you need to understand the term for the exam, even if it's bunk. Types of cryptography, we have stream and block ciphers. Stream is like one at a time. So if we think about 1 bit going in, encrypted, 1 bit going in, encrypted. It's gone through XORed with a little stream that mixes our plain text with a key stream. It's good for real-time services. At the end of the day, this is where we have live streaming data. We can encrypt it as it goes. Block ciphers are more like an amusement ride. The roller coaster stops, everyone gets out, everyone gets in, off it goes again. Everyone gets out, everyone gets in, off it goes again. It uses combinations of substitution and transposition, words you also need to know. There are things like substitution ciphers, converting one letter to another, word jumbles, transposition, changing the position of a letter in text, and monoalphabetic ciphers such as Caesar or the Captain Magic decoder ring, which is really a type of Caesar cipher. We also have polyalphabetic ciphers such as Vigneer, modular mathematics, which are more common for modern systems, running key ciphers, for instance, and one-time pads where we have randomly generated keys. If done correctly, a one-time pad with a truly random key can be the ultimate perfect crypto system. Actually getting random numbers and getting all that to work and only using it once is the difficulty. Another area is steganography, an area that I've worked with a little bit in the past. I did a paper years ago now on Haydn, which was a type of steganography and how to detect messages within that medium. In steganography, it's not actually encryption. It's something like putting a message inside a JPEG image. So if you have a look on steganography, there are tools for hiding things. So is the one-time pad similar to an RSA token? No. And we'll cover a little bit more on one-time pads in a little bit. One-time pads are basically a perfect crypto system if it's used correctly. Now, does steganography get much real-world use? It is very niche, and it doesn't really get much real-world use. It's really generally bad guy or hiding stuff use. So, cryptographic methods, there are two main primary methods, symmetric and asymmetric. In symmetric, something like DES or AES, we use the same key for encryption and decryption. That, of course, leaves us with a key distribution problem. So, at the end of the day, if you cannot, well, get your keys out there across multiple parties and whatever else, then you're going to run into problems very quickly. Symmetric, you need the same key for all aspects. So if you have two people, you need one key. If you have three people, then you need extra keys, etc., and it gets complex extremely quickly. Now, for asymmetric, what you need is a pair of keys. So you maintain your private key, never give it out, and protect it. And you have a public key that anyone can get to. And of course, we have hybrid methods where we use the strength and weaknesses of both. Asymmetric things where we have a symmetric key distributed over a protected session. That gives us a session key that allows us to have the speed of a something like AES, coupled with the key distribution of something like Algomal. Symmetric provides the bulk encryption and whatever else. So if we look at SSL TLS, then we have a hybrid method. Now, strong encryption is really based on confusion and diffusion. The confusion is key changes each round performed through substitution, and it's really about complicating everything. Diffusion is changing the location of plain text. And the idea of this is to make it so that you can't tell much difference at all between where we start and what we end up with from random data. There should be very little difference in entropy between random data and good encryption. So, message authentication codes, this is using cryptographic means to actually have authentication. What we have is a secret key generated and appended to a message, such as HMAC. If you look at RFC 2104 out there, uses a hash instead of cipher because it's much faster, and it's used in SSL TLS and IPsec as a way of authenticating sessions and authenticating messages. Also need to understand digital signatures, where a hash of a message is encrypted with the private key. So, in a digital signature, you don't actually encrypt or sign the entire message. We just take a hash of that message and then encrypt that. So there are a couple of standards. There's Digital Signature Standard, DSS, where you have sender authentication, verification of message integrity, and non-repudiation, as long as the key has never been lost, all that sort of stuff. What you're doing in non-repudiation is not saying that a person has signed it, but you can ensure that the key is there and has used it. So that's all you're able to do. Remember Kirchhoff's principle, and I put this one up there on the forum for people to answer. The only secrecy should be that involved in the key. The crypto system should be there to be analyzed. If you have some secret source crypto system that you're not telling everyone how it works, then basically you've got a piece of you-know-what, something you want to wipe off your shoe. The strength is how hard it is to determine the secret associated with that system. So if we look at the cryptographic system strength, then how hard is it to brute force to break in and get that info? And we can do that by brute forcing. We try all the different key values, everything out there, see what's what, and try and break in. Or frequency analysis. If we haven't got truly random data and information, then what we're trying to do is guess values. There are more E's than Z's. There are more A's than, say a letter Q, etc. So we can do a frequency analysis and look at, for a particular language, we get a different distribution of words and terms and everything else. Dictionary attack. We can use all those funky terms that people have out there as a dictionary type scenario. Well, what do we got? We got all sorts of fun and funky things like Klingon dictionaries, Star Trek dictionaries, etc. So there are dictionaries now for about everything. Just because you think you're being a bit of a smartass and you've put out a password in Klingon, well, too bad, someone's already cracked it. Replay attack. If we don't have a good crypto system, then someone might be able to just replay the information. They may not be able to break it, but they may understand what the message is and have the same message transmitted again. Factoring attacks, then looking at prime factorization. If you're looking at something like RSA, public-private key pairs, then it really comes down to a system where you have a series of primes, and being able to factor those primes through a factoring attack will actually give you the keys. There are also ciphertext only and known plaintext attacks, where if you have known plaintext and ciphertext using the same thing, you may be able to actually find the key and reverse things and get both messages. Chosen plaintext. You can attack using plaintext, ciphertext, discovered key, differential power analysis, all sorts of different attacks for you to read up on. But the easiest of all this one, the social engineering aspect, humans are always the weakest link. It's the old hit someone with a hammer until they tell you what they don't want to tell you. At the end of the day, people are the weakest link in all of this. Then there are RNG attacks and temporary files. For instance, if we look at TrueCrypt, one of the problems it had was memory files, that people could actually grab the key out of memory until they updated and fixed that. So, email security protocols, we have PEM, PGP, and SMIME. So these are different areas there that we might want to consider. We have pretty good privacy, has been around for quite some time now, based on a distributed trust model, although there's a centralized version of PGP as well, and each user has a key pair, public-private key, and SMIME, so public key infrastructure, so PKI type thing, supported by most modern email clients. So they're out there for you to use as well. Network security, we have that through all of this with TLS, SSL, VPNs, and also IPsec. Provides end-to-end and link encryption. So end-to-end encryption is where we encrypt application layer data, basically, so when we're looking at between machine and machine. If we're talking about SSL from your browser to the website, then what we're talking about is end-to-end encryption generally. Link encryption, we can do that from, say, a corporate VPN like the edge router to another edge router. And that way it's transparent to the users. So different protocols, the main ones we're looking at are SSL and TLS. supports mutual authentication, can work with PKI and with TLS and SSL version 3. You have digital certificates being able to be used, and IPsec is another way of doing all this, becoming far more common over time. So, used for VPNs primarily for IPsec, and it is still fairly much a core part of IPv6. And as people use that more, hopefully IPsec will roll out as well. So some of our examples we talked about here, you need to know those. So remember, you need to know the history of all this. So I mentioned that before. Make sure you have a good read of all of this. Make sure you understand all these different areas. Make sure you understand the different protocols. Make sure you understand how to do the Speak Like a Crypto Geek, and you understand the Cryptosystem Services. Understand the difference between stream and block-based ciphers, symmetric and asymmetric keys, hybrid, and other type things. So let's get into some of the attacks now. One of the common ones you'll hear about, this is actually a statistical thing that goes into statistical analysis of all of this, is the birthday attack. Now, this is there's a good write-up on Wikipedia there on birthday attack, and it's based on two messages with the same hash value. It's really based on the birthday paradox, so I suggest you have a good read on that one. It's actually quite surprising and easy to calculate when you know what you're doing, but many people get that wrong. If you have 30 people in a room, then you've got a more than 50% chance that 2 of them will have the same birthday. But what we're not doing is picking which of the 2. So hash algorithms need to be resistant to this attack. This is where we have problems with things like MD5. There are known attacks against MD5, but it doesn't mean that we can just use that for anything out there and easily come through and break all our systems. We have a whole lot of different scenarios that we might want to look at. How does it, what can I do for a digital signature attack, etc. So we do have some weaknesses with MD5, but how they are used is really what matters. So message authentication codes, as we put before, small block of data generated with a secret key tacked onto things. Digital signatures provide sender authentication, verification of integrity, and then cryptanalysis is how we break crypto systems. So generally what we're trying to do in a cryptanalysis is target breaking everything and attaining a key, because if we get the key we can use it again and again. So we have both passive and active attacks here, where we can try and do things over the wire or put things together. And if anyone wants a good example of cryptanalysis, not from social engineering, but proper analysis of packets, have a look at WEP, W-E-P. WEP is a very good example of all of this. So with WEP, you'll find that you can go out there and see the failings of a bad implementation of RC4 and what that actually meant. So has anyone here had a good read of some of the problems associated with WEP? So looking at all of that, you'll see that it wasn't RC4 that was actually broken. It was the implementation of the cryptographic protocol. So WEP is easy to crack with aircrack, as Cody has said, and the way that the initialization vectors and the fact that they didn't really securely update the keys was the problem. So yes, that's why WPA and others have replaced it. So WEP, well, still lots of it used, which is problematic, easy to crack, especially if you can sit there and just capture enough packets over time and you can crack it. So cryptanalysis, a really good example of that that's really quite public is the breaking of WEP. Another one is the cryptographic controls against DVDs. So if you have a look at those two, they will give you some good examples of cryptanalysis. And this is why we need Kirchhoff's principle. The only secrecy involved with a crypto system should be the key. When you have things such as the DVD encryption standard, then you have problems. And once it's broken, you can never get it back. So you move on to a new one, but it gets broken, too bad. So crypto system strength. How hard is it to determine the secret associated with the system? What do we need to do? That's what we're trying to find out. So remember, brute force, frequency analysis, dictionary attack. Replay attack, factoring attack, cipher only, and plain text are the different areas we need to know here. And we can find it in other ways such as social engineering and temporary files. So email security protocols, you need to know PGP and privacy enhanced mail, fairly much inside out. They're pretty important. And S-MIME is a secure version of MIME. So for anyone who hasn't had a look at any of the MIME standards or anything like that, then that's a good one to know. Know the difference between link and end-to-end. Know TLS and IPsec. And then what we get into is what cryptographic systems provide again. So confidentiality, we keep things secret. We maintain the integrity, ensuring that things do not change. We add authentication. Message comes from who you say that it does. Authorization, because we have authentication, we can authenticate people, the bit we covered in our first session. A user can be provided with a password, whatever else, to access a resource. And as I said, legal fiction, but non-repudiation. Ensure that no one can deny someone sent a message, or at least we know that the key involved was what sent it. Cryptography, method for storing and transmitting data in a form only intended for an authorized person to get to. That's important. So make sure you realize, understand that one. It is an important concept here we need to know. You need to understand this one inside and out. Cryptanalysis. This is studying and breaking and reverse engineering keys. Know how to do what that involves. You don't need to necessarily break every key out there, but you need to know what it means. Okay? And cryptology, study of secret codes. Crypto system, all these bits together. Encryption, making our plain text into the unreadable format. Plain text, what we start with. Ciphertext, all the scrambled data, the encrypted stuff. Decryption, turning ciphertext back into what? Who's going to type this one in for me? I'm going to leave that. Decryption, turning ciphertext back into plain text. Very good. Glad you're all listening. Encryption algorithm. This is a set of rules and procedures that dictate how to encrypt and decrypt data. And key is our crypto variable used in the encryption process to encrypt and decrypt. Key space, how many possible values. Key clustering, when we have two different keys generate the same cipher from the same plain text. And work factor is how much time we're going to estimate to break this. How much time are we going to expect before we break into our crypto system? So our basic process, here we have a symmetric key, same key for instance, plain text, encryption, ciphertext, decryption with the same key, plain text. We also have non-encryption ciphers, remember. These are things like steganography, where we hide information. Hidden is hiding information inside executables. Confusion and diffusion, hiding things through substitution or whatever else. Key management, we need key lengths should be long enough to provide necessary level of protection. So if we need to protect something for a year, then it shouldn't be crackable within a year. If we need to be able to access things, then we need to be able to access it for the right amount of time. We need to store and transport our keys in a secure manner. This is why things like PKI and whatever else came about, making sure that we don't need to store and transmit all of those in ways that causes lots of problems over time. So how do we get all those keys out there to people? That's where we're going to have some problems if we don't do it well. Keys should be random. We shouldn't be picking things 001, 002, that sort of stuff, or people will break our keys quickly. So we need to be able to do these things well. Key lifetime needs to correspond with the sensitivity of the data to be protected. So if we're protecting information from people trying to access a concert, for instance, and it's only for the night, the tickets need to be valid for, say, 6 hours, then we don't need to worry about a cryptographic scheme that will protect them for the next million years. Okay, so that's not something we need to do. Key management. More the key is used, shorter its lifespan should be. Hello, WEP. Keys should be backed up in case of some emergency, especially if you have private key pairs, things like that. You need to be able to access them. You need to control those. And keys should be destroyed when their lifetime is at an end, so people can't go back into your old backups if they've found them and try and access. Remember, symmetric, asymmetric, hybrids, and hashes. So symmetric, once again, the same key is used to encrypt and decrypt. It's fast, hard to break if we have a large key size, and gives us confidentiality. Symmetric gives us confidentiality. That's the main thing here. We can't say that we have other such things like integrity or whatever else, because although there are some symmetric key integrity schemes, we can't authenticate necessarily using a pure DES key, that sort of thing. We need to do other things with it to get all that. So we have to share our keys. Difficult to do. Do we really need to get out there? So yeah, symmetric keys used for bulk data, but then we generally use public-private key pairs to exchange symmetric keys. We need a secure mechanism to deliver the keys, whether we go out there and meet someone and exchange them or whatever else. We need some way of doing that. We need an n factorial over 2 number of keys for the number of people out there. So it's an exponential increase. When we get to each additional person, it goes up quicker than we have people. And it doesn't give us authenticity or non-repudiation. We have things like block and stream ciphers, once again, and we need to understand initialization vectors. Stream. We XOR stuff. Key makes a key stream, to put it through a key stream generator that has a continuous block, well, not block, but a continuous bit by bit by bit stream of randomish data. It then can be used to 1 bit by 1 bit, pull the stuff off and encrypt it. So stream ciphers work, take our plain text, key stream generator, bit by bit, we XOR each of the bits of data together and gives us our ciphertext, all mixed up. Stream ciphers, well, they're hard work. These are things that should be done in hardware. Coding them into something like a computer is difficult. That's why, well, some of the modern processors have specialized AES streams in them now, or you can even buy crypto cards. Key stream generator should not have repeating patterns. If it has repeating patterns, then people can use that and the differences to actually decrypt your data. It should not produce predictable output, or people can break your data. Key stream generator should not have anything related to the key, or people can break your data. Number of zeros and ones should be random and equal. All right, initialization vectors are not encryption per se, but they allow us to make things more random. So what they do is add random values to the process, allowing us, even if we say the same block of text twice, to have 2 different outputs. The same as when we have a salt on a password. These are the different areas you need to know for the exam. You need to know DES, triple DES, AES, IDEA, Blowfish, RC4, 5, and 6. So DES is the old data encryption standard, which I'll let you read on your own. There's plenty of material out there on it. And DES is the standard. DEA is the algorithm. It's been retired because it's too easy to break. DES is a symmetric block-based key. It's 64-bit for a key, but it's only 56 bits. So if you have a bit of a read up on that, it'll explain why. Divides data into blocks, operates on them one at a time, each block being passed through 16 rounds and processed again and again. How LAN Manager works and NTLM. You will for other sections, not so much now. For the cryptographic area, no, but there are some other bits we'll cover LAN Manager and NTLM in. So we have different modes for DES as well as other things. Electronic code book, cipher blockchaining, cipher feedback output mode, and counter mode. Electronic code book is a regular type encryption, straightforward block by block, same plain text, same key, same ciphertext, always bad, which means you can replay it and attack it. Cipher blockchaining tried to solve some of those problems by adding extra data. So results from previous block were used. So then if you get something damaged in the front of your stream, it can actually screw everything else up on decryption. So we have an initialization vector. So this is what we end up doing, our CBC process. Initialization vector, etc. Text, XORed, key, blah, blah, blah. So text and initialization vector. So here's our plain text, here's our initialization vector, and they're XORed together. Key is added, gives us our crypto. And we keep going round, and we use the previous one as our IV, and etc., etc., and work through it. So initialization vector starts once, then our next block of text replaces the initialization vector and continues that way as we go through things. So other ones, you don't need to know too much about each of the others, but I do encourage you to read up on them. So triple DES, there are different formats for that. Like DES uses 48 rounds instead of 16 rounds, so various reasons for it. But either 3 keys or 2 keys, same one back and forwards, that sort of stuff, and makes it a little bit more secure. So it extended DES out. AES, or Advanced Encryption Standard, was the replaced really developed to replace DES. Multiple algorithms chosen to become DES, replace DES, I should say, and the one actually chosen was Rinjal. And that's a block cipher, works well in both software and hardware, low memory requirements, fast and inexpensive, and comes in various block sizes. Idea, a block cipher, 128-bit key, faster than DES in software, used in PGP, patented. Although patent doesn't last forever. Blowfish, very good, very sound, but slow. RC4, the stream cipher, RC5, block cipher, and RC6, block cipher. So a little bit of reading on each of these. Now, a one-time pad I told you I'd get to, and now here we go. It's a modification of a symmetric key system. It is known as a perfect crypto system. It's been around a long time, but very rarely done correctly. Unbreakable if implemented correctly. So key is a series of bits, 0 and 1. Plain text is converted to bits. So think of ASCII. We take our letter A, convert it to the ASCII value, and put that in bits. Then the message is XORed with our pad, which is random data. So we go bit by bit and XOR it against the pad. And then we generate our ciphertext. So if we have our plain text and our pad, we XOR those together to get our ciphertext. One-time pad, we have to use a different pad every time we use a message. We can never, and I mean never, ever, 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 ever use the same one. That's the problem. We can never, ever, and I'll stress this again, ever reuse it. That's where we get into trouble. People always try and save a bit of money. One of the reasons that the Russians lost out against the Americans in cryptography wasn't anything better here. They were both using one-time pads in the 50s and 60s. But the Americans truly used their one-time pads as one-time pads. They were destroyed after every use, whereas the Russians reused them. So people were able to capture, like a few incidents in Turkey in the 50s and 60s resulted in the capture of a whole pile of one-time pads, and they were reused. So as the Russians reused them, they were able to break them, and that's the problem. You can never reuse a one-time pad. It needs to be just as long as everything else you've got. So one-time pads need to be exactly the length of the message. If you have a 500 meg message, you need a 500 meg one-time pad. One-time pad used only once. Shared by both parties. They both have to have it like a symmetric key. Must be as long as the message. Must be securely distributed and must be used and created from truly random values. All right, asymmetric keys. We have this to solve some of those issues in distribution of keys from symmetric keys. Rather than use the same key for encryption and decryption, we use a different key for encryption and decryption with it. So public-private key pairs. Mathematically related, but private key is one that you have and you never share with anyone. Public key is the one you give the world. Now, question here, how do you know you aren't reusing a pad if you destroy them with each use so you can't check that you haven't used it already? The chances of reprinting a pad of random data are infinitesimally small. So if you're talking about a pad that is doing just a message that is 1,000K long, it's similar to, well, people talk about how hard it is to have a 128-bit key. Well, then we're talking about for 1,000 characters, then a 2,500-bit key, symmetric key. So we're talking about something ridiculously large and hard, end of the universe type stuff to break. You can watch the video from the MOOC. I'm sure Chantel will put the information up. So that's the Learn area. So, public key, you give to everyone. Private key stays your secret. You never share it. So, plain text, we take our public key from our other party, encrypt it, ciphertext their private key, does it. So, to encrypt a message to someone, we need their public key. Not ours, theirs. We take their public key and use it to encrypt the message so that they can decrypt it. That's what we're talking about. So to encrypt using public key methods, we need to have a copy of their public key. So public and private keys can be reversed as well. So we can also use these in different ways. We can use a private key to encrypt plain text, and then the public key will do it. So this is a signing algorithm. So if we use our private key to encrypt a message, then our public key can decrypt it. And this is how we can have the world know that we actually signed this. It was us, no one else. How expensive is it to implement a one-time pad in business systems? Extremely. We can do it in software, but we need to have a way of distributing it and all sorts of things. That's a question I think you should put on the forum as well. I'd love to discuss that one there. So please put the question of how expensive to implement one-time pads it is in business on the forum. Now, does everyone have the same public key? No. There's a public-private key pair, and they're mathematically related. So you have a public key associated with your private key, but you give your public key to the world. So everyone gets a copy of your public key if they want it. Only you have your private key. So where the public key encrypts, that we did earlier, oops, public key does the encryption, private key decrypts. Okay, so public key, but it's not your public key. It's the person you're sending the message to, their public key. On the other hand, you can use your private key so that your public key can decrypt it, and that's digital signing. How can you use it for non-repudiation? Well, if we're doing, if you actually have your private key protected and you sign a message, then anyone can validate that you signed it. So signing, this is the process of using a private key to encrypt something that can only be decrypted with your public key. So the world can validate that it was you. Would you ever use an asymmetric cryptography to encrypt a symmetric key to distribute it? Yes, that's what hybrid encryption is. So if you talk about SSL/TLS or IPsec, what they do is a public-private key session is used to distribute a key, which is the session key, and the session key is actually a symmetric key. All right, next we have a one-way function. All right, so did you say that you could decrypt with the private key as well as encrypting with it? Depending on what you want to do. If you can encrypt or decrypt with either key, depending on whether you want to digitally sign or not. So let's go back up here for a second. So to go back over this, to encrypt a message, we take the public key of the person we're sending the thing to. So I use your public key. You can then decrypt it using your private key. To sign a message, I use my private key to encrypt the message, and you can decrypt it and validate that I signed it using my public key that everyone has. So hashing is a one-way function. It's used to validate things because you can never reverse it. So if we take a hash function, it's one way. You take a big block of data and always make the same output. It's fast, and well, if we drop a glass, for instance, we can't put it back together. So basically what we're trying to do is create something that we can do in one direction only and not get things back from. So let's see. Asymmetric encryption, a message is encoded with a one-way function. We have a trapdoor, how to undo it faster, and that's our private key. That's how they're shared. So pros, key distribution is easy, scalable because of that, and that's how we can use this to authenticate people, because we never give out our private key. If you have the private key, then we know that it must have been you. It's mathematically intense and then slow. We have different examples. We have Diffie-Hellman, RSA, Algol, and elliptic curve. Elliptic curve being quite good in that it doesn't require a lot of power, so we can use it on low power systems. So Diffie-Hellman, then we're talking about systems where we can share things based on public-private keys. Once again, RSA, large number factoring, Algol, it's based on elliptic curve logarithmic functions, elliptic curve analysis and whatever else, elliptic curve Cryptosystems. So it's now the fastest asymmetric algorithm and uses discrete logarithms, being used a lot now because of, some of the modern systems we have out there, etc. Hybrid systems, we have combination systems of all of these you need to know, and hashes. So let's quickly cover hashes. So hash takes a fixed length variable and always produces the same value output. Always the same length output. So something comes in no matter how long it is, and the same length comes out all the time. Takes any length variable, produces a fixed output. If we can find two things with the same output, that's known as a collision. And collisions should be unpredictable. We should not be able to easily tell how to get them, or that's called forcing a collision, in which case we could create a message with the same value as another hash. We don't want that, and we'll discuss that on the forum, I think. So we provide integrity with a hash, not confidentiality or authentication. So hashes are capable of being attacked by man in the middle. So we're going to, I'll ask that question on the forum because we're running low on time. And HMAC is using a secret value in combination with a hash. So a HMAC is an authentication algorithm using something like DES plus MD5. And using a HMAC, we can hash and encrypt and put both of them together. So something like this, message plus key hash gives a MAC. We can send the MAC over the insecure channel, take the key and the message and validate it and know that we've encrypted our session correctly. So HMAC provides integrity and data authentication, not confidentiality. No specific person authentication. Keys are shared. So that's one of the problems. CBC MAC, plain text is sent in the MAC, doesn't use a hash, so doesn't provide confidentiality at all. You need to know a few different specific hash algorithms, MD2, 4, 5, and SHA of the various types. MD2, 128-bit, MD4 is also 128-bit, MD5 is a 128-bit hash, SHA, the different types, 256, 3, etc., various values out there, right from 160 up to 512-bit hashes. And there are things like attacks against hashes. This is trying to find the way of breaking it and finding a collision, such as the birthday attack that I asked you to read about earlier. So what is the difference between encryption and a hash? A hash is a one-way function you can never reverse. If you could, you'd have the ultimate compression algorithm, but you can't. So with a hash, it's one way. You can do the thing, get the block value, but you can never go back to the original. Digital signatures, we use asymmetric crypto and hashes to provide message authenticity. So this is where we sign something, we take data, we hash it, we encrypt using the signer's private key, the hash. That makes our certificate that we can attach to the data and say that's digitally signed. Verification, we split those off, data, signature, and everything like that, and we can compare the hashes and know that nothing's changed. It provides integrity and non-repudiation, so that we're going to discuss on the forum. Okay? So PKI, generic idea, it's a public key infrastructure of all these keys. We have all those public keys out there, and it's some way of signing and vouching for it and saying that this is an encryption key that I trust. PGP is another one, not centralized generally, and oops, that should be week 2. Missed that one. So that is week 2. There we go. All right, so quick questions before we end for the day. Remember, go onto the forum and there'll be lots of reading for you as well. So do I have any quick questions before the end of all this? Johnny, I can't encrypt, case study, PGP, that's a good one. Definitely put that one up on the forum as a link. That's a good read, that one. The sense of humor comes free, so don't mind. Hash cannot be reversed. Well, you're losing information. So if you take a 4 gig packet of information and you turn it down into a 512-bit hash, you can see that there's lots of things that can be there. Hash is vulnerable as you can brute force it easier than crypto. Depends on the hash and the algorithm. So that varies. Is it necessary to focus on encryption? No, not necessary. It's one of the domains. You need to know a little bit about it. Why say symmetric cannot provide authentication? All right, if you have 100 people all sharing a key, then it could be any of them. So you don't know who authenticated or if they've lost the key. How many years of experience in security and study required to get confident and clear the exam? Practice go through some of the example questions, etc. And if you're doing well on those, you should be okay. Will salting hashes be covered in the CISSP? Yes, salts will be covered. Some banks use token to generate one-time passcodes. They vary. Generally a cryptographic algorithm based on calculation of time. Will cloud be the next business continuity process? Well, cloud is part of all that. Cloud is just sticking your machines out there on the net somewhere. Whether you own your data center and have it in your local facility, or you have a data center shared or whatever else, doesn't really matter. Yes, we've still got 5,000 people. I don't know how many dropped off. I don't think many, but it's nice and busy. You need to know a little bit about cryptographic algorithms and key management. So, how long is a piece of string? That varies, of course, but there's a maximum length of the piece of string, of course, as well. I don't know about the celery scales. Can't answer that one. Does cloud increase the risk? No. How you implement things increases the risk. Where the question is answered is in the question area of GoTo. Okay, so if you have a look in the show answered questions and whatever else, that will be where they are. Okay, at this point, I'm going to hit stop recording and go from there. Take your questions to the forum, please. We will be continuing, and I hope you enjoyed everything. I hope it went well for you, and we will be back with next week. And, of course, we'll be back on the forum as well. And there'll be much more for you to read and keep going with shortly. Okay? Any more questions? Take to the forum and we'll make sure we answer them there. And have a great evening, guys.